What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Inside the Vinyl. I'm your host, Tim Bianconi. If you would go ahead and like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel below, that would be greatly appreciated. If you could also hit that notification bell so you can be notified when we put out new content, that would be appreciated also. So I'm back here today to do another Lost Classic, and this time we're going to focus on the band Cinderella. So in 1994, they released their fourth album called Still Climbing. And great album, but unfortunately for them, their time of climbing, at least as far as the charts and record sales are concerned, had pretty much come to an end because of changing styles in music. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this is a great, great record. So again, this was released on November 8th of 1994. It was released on the Mercury label and would be the last album they would release on that label. Last album they would release ever, really, at least studio-wise. Let's see, it was produced by Dwayne Barron, John Purdell, and Tom Kiefer. There's no gold or platinum certifications on this, unfortunately, and it's their only one of their four albums that's not platinum or more. And it only got up to number 178 on the Billboard chart, which is really unfortunate. So, you know, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Grunge had taken over 3 years prior. A lot of the other bands, a lot of their contemporaries had seen their record sales drop off, some more than others. You know, and unfortunately for them, this album was delayed, I think, a couple of years because of Tom Kiefer's vocal issues. So they weren't even really able to get the albums out, say, at the same time as like Warren or Poison or some of those other groups that put out albums that at least got gold status, you know, or whatever, before the bottom completely fell out. So unfortunately for them, timing really hit them hard, like in more ways than one. So let's go ahead, and there wasn't a lot of label support for this kind of music, especially from the major labels in 1994. So unfortunately, it suffered, it struggled, and didn't sell. But again, that doesn't take away from the quality of the album. It's just, you know, just wrong album at the wrong time, I guess. So let's just take a look at this. So again, it doesn't say Cinderella on the front. It just has this, whoa, the record's going to come out on its own. It just has this ladder to wherever. In there, and Still Climbing. And then if you look at the back, it has the track listing, as well as just some other, you know, record label notes. So this is the Music on Vinyl reissue, and this came out earlier this year. I don't have the exact date, but it took me a long time to get this record because when I initially pre-ordered it on Amazon, like the day before, they were like, oh, it's not coming tomorrow, and we'll let you know when it's coming. And then it just never, it was just unavailable after a while. And then I kept checking, and it finally came available again. So I ordered it, and now I have it. So pretty stoked about that. All right, so let's see what's inside here. All right. So if I take out the insert, on one side we have just some liner notes and some different things, like the people in the band and special thanks and all that. And then if we turn this over, we have the lyrics to the album. Now, again, I don't know that there was ever a vinyl release, at least in America, ever of this album. I mean, it doesn't seem like there would be in that time period. Maybe in another country. And I don't know, I don't remember like what the cassette or the CD booklet would have had. It has been so long ago. But again, if we pull this out, we see 180 gram black vinyl, which again, I'm always super excited about. And also one of the cool things on this too is this Mercury logo in the middle. Now that's an old school like 80s Mercury logo, because I want to say by the time this album came out, I want to say the Mercury logo had already turned into that like diamond shaped logo they started using in like the early to mid 90s. I may be wrong about that. It might have been another year or two before that particular logo changed, but again, it's kind of neat to see like this old, you know, Mercury logo in the middle that you would see on some of the older Cinderella records, or even like, you know, like an American version of like Pyromania or something like that. You know, so I think that's really cool. And again, if we flip the record over, same sticker in the middle, you know, nothing too crazy there. So, all right. So let's go ahead and put all this back together. And then we'll talk about this record a little bit. And maybe I'll put this in here to where the record just, you know, won't just like fall out. All right, cool. So there we go. There we go. Let me set that up here. All right, so there you go. Cinderella, Still Climbing. So, like I said, you know, the album suffered due to the grunge movement and movement away from, you know, anything 80s as far as rock is concerned, you know, unless you were like Bon Jovi or something. There's no label support. It was delayed due to Tom Kiefer's vocal issues, yada, yada, yada. So, you know, it didn't chart very high. However, there are some really cool tunes on this. And one thing I will say about this record, a lot of bands from the 80s, when the 90s hit and grunge took over, a lot of those bands changed their sound, some more drastically than others, to try to fit in. So some may have just decided, you know, we don't have to sing about partying anymore. We can make things a little bit darker. We can be a little more serious, or we can be a little heavier. And then some bands just tried to be like almost grungy all the way. Cinderella did not do that, in my opinion. I don't know, somebody else might think differently, but this album is every bit. It's not as leaning more towards like blues and southern rock, I think, as Heartbreak Station, but definitely has a lot in common with their first two records. Long Cold Winter and Night Songs. Took me a second. I think it has a lot in common with those. It's just straight ahead rock and roll. Sonically, I don't think Cinderella was ever really, if you look at their first album, they look every bit like a hair band, or whatever, and that was probably record label stuff. But like musically, they've always been really, really bluesy, real bluesy rock and roll, and really good and far beyond what the picture on that first album might tell you. And this album is no exception to that. Again, they stayed true to who they were. Maybe I don't know, maybe it helped, maybe it didn't. I'm not really sure. Again, none of the bands from that time, with the exception of maybe Bon Jovi, were still doing well at this point, and that's unfortunate. But again, great record. The first song, Bad Attitude Shuffle, if you've heard any of their greatest hits albums, I think it's on, one of those. I hear it on Hair Nation sometimes too. Cool song. Blood from a Stone is one of the songs I see on like compilations and stuff, so you may have heard that. And then, of course, the last song on this album is a song called Hot and Bothered, which was featured in Wayne's World a couple of years before. So there is a well-known song on this record with Hot and Bothered. So it's funny, like with this album, I guess Cinderella was technically down to a trio because Fred Coury was out of the band by this point. There was no official drummer. Now, legendary drummer Kenny Aronoff played drums on this record. So, I mean, there's obviously drums on it, and they're done by, just a master. But again, it was the last album by the band, last studio record. And I think contractually, for a while, they were unable to even record a Cinderella, even if they wanted to, because they had signed a deal with Sony later in the 90s, and then that fell through, and then there was litigation and all sorts of other stuff. You can read more about that on Wikipedia or wherever else. But I know they weren't able to record a Cinderella for a while, even though they were still touring into the 2000s or whatever. And now, I don't think there's any hope that we'll ever see Cinderella, on stage again, at least together. Tom Kiefer does his thing solo. Unfortunately, the original guitar player, whose name escapes me right at the moment, Jeff LaBar, passed away recently. Fred Coury is doing more, it seems like soundtrack type stuff and, scores or whatever. And I don't know what Eric Brittingham's doing. So I don't know that there's any hope that we'll see any formation of Cinderella, if they even wanted to do it, or if they'd even be willing to do it without Jeff LaBar. So who knows? But anyway, if you're somebody like me that loves 80s style rock, and, even though I love grunge and all that stuff too, I really love 80s style rock. There's a lot of albums that came out like in the early 90s, when some of these bands were still trying to hold on, that are really good that you should check out if you like that style. And this is definitely one of them. If you like this will fit right in with everything else 80s that you love. So check it out. Cinderella, Still Climbing. You can get it on, this vinyl edition, but I know it's also available on all the streaming services and CDs and whatever else. So check it out. You won't be disappointed. That's all I've got for you this time. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified when we put out new content. I've got the rest of my Lost Classic series, which I'm hoping to ramp up even more in the future. I also like to discuss live albums on my channel. We also do a lot of unboxing, and that's new albums, re-releases, reissues, special editions, deluxe editions, anniversary editions, whatever it is. Sometimes most of the time they're vinyl, sometimes they're CDs, it just depends. I've also got some concert footage from the last several years at various festivals and concerts and things that I've attended. I've got some disc golf stuff out there too, if you care about any of that. And last but not least, I do have a couple of short documentary style films or videos or whatever that I made for school, as well as a podcast I recently posted where I interviewed a former FBI agent about his role in the his role in the biggest case of espionage in American history. So check those out. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.